Hello, it's Doris with Aldi Books, and I'm here to wrap up July because it's August. I finished three more books the last week of the month, so I can't call this Friday reads. I can't call it belated Friday reads exactly because I guess I can. Maybe I will. It's not exactly a July wrap up because I've been doing Friday reads consistently all month and I'm so proud. Hopefully the pattern continues in August because that is a very effective method for my brain space. Anyway, let's just dive on into the books, except I have a couple more things to say, I guess. I've become that person who dog ears her books, and I'm not mad about it. Like, I think this might be my new thing. Like, I don't dog ear for marking my place, like get a bookmark already, or a piece of trash out of the bin. But I, like, in the last week and a half have started dog earing important quotes because I'm too lazy to annotate most days, most months, most years. But yeah, I have been folding down pages on those. I'm not a tabber either, apparently. This might be my this is working for me. This is working for me. Yeah, everybody's got their method. Everybody's got their method. And the other thing I need to say is that I think I'm having a political moment with these books based on the quotes that I'm going to share. They're very serendipitous, which is odd looking at the collection that I have here. It's really odd, but they all have been talking to each other in my head. So, first up, we have The Orchid Thief by Susan Orlean, a true story of beauty and obsession. This was fabulous. It is based on this guy named LaRoche. He's quite the character, living down in South Florida. So this is adventure nonfiction / true crime. And he has gone into the national forest there and tried to use some Seminole Indian friends / coworkers to lift orchids illegally. And he got caught and, he got charged. So, yep. But he's still, you can't help but like him. And so Susan Orlean uses this story as a framework for my absolute favorite type of nonfiction, which is one that pulls in every random thought based on the storyline. So you hear about Victorian naturalists, you hear about revolutionary orchid biology, you hear about orchid smuggling around the world, you hear about the uber wealthy South Florida orchid scene. It's just all fascinating, really, really fascinating. So highly recommend this book if you're interested in any of those sorts of things. So the quote that I'm going to read here is perhaps minorly spoilery, but it's nonfiction. And it really reminds me of Duck's Newburyport. But it also, like, even though this was written 20 years ago and, it's about orchids in South Florida, it really encapsulates my feelings at this moment in time. So Gonna read that real quick for you. I suddenly felt sorry for him for having had his heart broken again and again. And then I felt sorry for everything. Sorry for the people who didn't win anything at the orchid show, even though they had groomed and doted on their plants. And sorry for the way the Fakahatchee had been plowed and burned and stripped. And sorry for all the people who'd bought a piece of imagined paradise in the muddy stretch of the blocks. And for the Seminoles who wished they still lived in chickies in the wetlands. And for all the crumpled up bingo players at the casino. And for the hundreds and hundreds of Elaine bromeliads that turned out ugly and were dumped. And for Lee Moore, who was just then on his way to Jacksonville with orchids in his van, but instead of seeing the drab interstate in front of him, was dreaming of his city of gold in Peru. And sorry for anyone who ever cared about something that didn't work out. And I felt sorry for myself for being lost in the Fakahatchee Strand with no idea of what to do. Then, like all sorriness, it hardened into something less stifling, and I suddenly decided that I would rather walk, no matter which way we went, than to sit here idle and frantic, spinning my mind like a tire in sand. I knew LaRoche wanted me to see a ghost orchid as much or maybe even more than I wanted to see it myself. But now I really wanted most of all to go home. At this point, I realized it was just as well that I never saw a ghost orchid, so that it could never disappoint me, and so it would remain forever something I wanted to see. Yeah, listening to everybody talking on the internet, sometimes I feel bad for everybody all over the place, and I don't know which end is up, so I might just need to take a break and go home, right? To my zinnia patch. Anyway, the next one that I have to share is Yes, We Still Can. Politics in the Age of Obama, Twitter, and Trump by Dan Pfeiffer, who was the former White House communications director and a senior aide, and then is the co-host of Pod Save America, which I'm not familiar with because I don't listen to podcasts, but this was great. So it's just focusing on the first year or so of, well, not the first, but like a year or so of campaigning before Obama took office, and then the first 6 years of him being in office, and then a little bit of the run up to and him leaving office after his 2 years in term. From a front seat perspective, Dan Pfeiffer was right there through it all. So yes, very much enjoyed this. It's just always so nice for me to spend time in the warm glow of Obama. I'm sorry if you don't like him, but I do. And the really, like, even if you don't like Obama or you love Obama or, you're ambivalent to Obama, this book is very, very enlightening on Twitter, because Twitter became a political force during the Obama years. And so this sheds such a light on that. It's just like, wow. The things he had to say about Twitter were, I think, really important to hear. So I'm going to read you a quote from that. The book itself is, it's very pro-Democrat, obviously, which is, fine. I like that. But it's a little bit too anti-Republican for my taste at times. But I don't mind that either, because, that's who was writing it. So that's the perspective you're getting. But here is the quote. And, I don't even think I need to say anything about it because it speaks quite eloquently for itself. Let me just flip the camera again. The last flip was an accident because I messed up reading and, Too much of political coverage is glorified sports coverage. No different than what we see on ESPN. Who's winning? What were the highlights? What were the bloopers? That is not inherently a bad thing. Our system works better when people are interested, and the dismal viewership of C-SPAN suggests people are not interested in the daily grind of the legislative process. And media outlets are businesses with shareholders, earning statements, and payrolls to meet. We think of journalism as an endeavor of public service, and there is certainly a nobility in it relative to other industries. But the business model is no different than any other media industry. If people don't watch, advertisers don't buy ads. So media outlets have an obligation to produce content that causes people to tune in, subscribe, and click. If I were in their shoes, I would do the exact same thing. With that undeniably fair caveat, let me be very clear. The way politics is being covered, consumed, tweeted, and Facebooked is royally effing up America. Full stop. This is not just the media's fault. Voters and politicians are also to blame because they willingly participate in and consume the spectacle. Politics is covered like a game, but politics is not a game. It's a noble pursuit, even if it is sometimes pursued ignobly. The decisions made by politicians have dramatic and sometimes life and death consequences for the public. Those decisions and the process to pick the decision maker deserves coverage worthy of the stakes. And the last one here is Are Women on the Ground? Essays by Arab Women Reporting from the Arab World. So this is an essay collection, like just as it says. But what I really appreciated about this, I mean, despite the fact that I was incredibly enlightened about so many women in the Middle East, what they've gone through, what their aspirations are. Journalists, these are all journalists and photojournalists writing these essays. But what I really appreciated most about this book was the variety of viewpoints. This book lets everyone have a voice. There are women that are more liberal and progressive in their views, you know, based on the environment that they're writing from. Those that are more conservative. There are women, you know, wearing t-shirts out in the field with jackets, probably. Those wearing hijabs, those wearing burqas. Yeah. There are women that grew up in the States and have, you know, of Arab descent, you know, different countries in this Arab world, coming over to the Middle East to write. Syria, Beirut, you know, all those places. And then there, you know, there are women that were raised in those places, living in them now, that have had to flee because of the politics. It wasn't safe for them, and have to write from other Middle Eastern countries, not their own, and the tragedy of that. But all of their voices are heard. So they don't all, you know, mesh, but you get a fuller picture and are allowed to really see. I'm a big fan of listening to all the voices. So, the quote here, it's a short one, so I'll just end with this. But this is from a woman who, she worked as a newscaster for two different, I forget which country, but I highly recommend that you read the book. But she worked for two different news companies, one more progressive and one more conservative. And, you know, she talks about both of those experiences and what those companies were hoping to get out of her service and using her, and what she got out of it. And she ends, this is her final thought. She says, "But I know that I worked hard and listened harder to all points of view, even inconvenient ones. And for that, I have no regrets."